Stephanie.
Hello, Dom.
How are you?
Excellent. How are you?
I'm good. So nice to see you again.
Yes. Well, thanks. Thank you so much for doing this. This is going to be fun.
It is going to be fun and interesting. I think a lot of people don't understand how the flow of money moves from the government to private industry and back again, and that's what you're an expert on.
Yeah. Well, let's see what we can do and get more companies, more people, free money.
Yeah. Well, we have their attention. That's a great place to start, right?
Yeah.
So let me introduce you to everybody here with us today, and then we'll get into our conversation. So I've got Stephanie Sang with me. She's from Granted Consulting. Stephanie and I met at a business club that I'm part of, which is called Entrepreneurs Organization. We've got chapters all around the world, and Stephanie's in one of the groups associated with our club, and so we've had her in to speak to our little breakout group. And you talk to us. Actually, I know you're working with some of us there on how we can get government money for different operations. And I was just very impressed with the things you've been able to do with people. You're very detailed. You know the law. You know what's available, when it's available, what will and won't work. And I thought, what a great topic to bring to people.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why I went into this business. So I'm happy to kind of share a little bit of that as well because it's a different type of story.
Yeah. Can you tell us what is Granted Consulting and what do you do? And maybe that'll give everybody a little more context here.
For sure. So Granting Consulting empowers businesses by letting them know about different grant programs that are available. Primarily Canadian grants is what we deal with, and for businesses. So a lot of companies will, or the general public will know of grants that are available for charities. They may know them for nonprofits, but rarely do companies and business owners think that there are grant programs available for their own business. And so what we are doing is helping to manage and leverage that entire process from research to what we call final reconciliation, or getting that check in hand, and ensuring that every step is followed through, and that we're actually helping our clients through that, and giving them a better understanding of what it is that's required to be successful.
Sure. So that's a great intro. And so there's some people listening here who are in BC. We're in Vancouver, British Columbia. And there's people here who are in Canada, but we've also got lots of listeners in the States and in foreign countries as well, English speaking countries, because I think it would be tough to translate this into Portuguese or something. But where would I go if I was in another country like Australia? I had a great conversation last week with an Australian woodworking company. But where would I go in another country or region to find people like you?
Yeah, well, I would say grad consultants are typically geared kind of towards more the nonprofit side of things. So we're a little bit unique in the way that we do things with businesses, but definitely resources of your local BIA, or your business improvement association, maybe your board of trade, or your commerce, whatever agency that's available in your region.
Right.
So places like that would have information about grant programs. We have something in Canada called, employment services. And so that's another region where, or maybe a department in your country, where you would be able to get information about different grant programs.
Yeah. Just as you were saying that, you reminded me of how we actually first met, which was at the Food Manufacturing Association meeting, which has nothing to do with cabinet making and nothing to do with government grant money, but I think we were sitting next to each other. We're in the same row, right?
That's
With
right.
the mushroom guy, the guy who did mushroom importing. And for those of you listening, we're not talking about the loony toony mushrooms. We're talking about what would you call it? Gourmet mushrooms.
Yeah, exactly.
But that goes to your point. Get involved and go to industry association events and find out where you can find people like Stephanie if you don't have them in your area. Okay, well, great. So let's start with this. Where are the categories, or what are the buckets that money's available from the government in, and what are the things that people think they can get money for that you always have to tell us, no, that's actually not covered?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll frame it this way. Most government grant programs are going to do one of three things. So one is they want to increase employment within their country, and that is in Canada, that is absolutely the case. So there's a lot of employment types of grants where you're hiring someone. Some may be catered towards, a particular demographic or age group. So that's to keep in mind. The second thing is to upskill the people in their country as well. So anything to do with training, anything that will allow them to go into a particular industry that they wouldn't have been able to go into without that type of structured course or training. And then the final one is really like exports and anything where you're looking to establish more revenues in a different country where you're taking a little bit of a risk in that area. So that's, these three buckets are really for general businesses. Then we get into a little bit of the technical side. So in Canada, we are one of the few countries, developed countries, where we're kind of like in the 26th or 27th placement in terms of innovation. And so one of the key things in Canada that we're really pushing is innovation. So we have things like tax credits, grant programs where they have more of a technical base of clientele or businesses where they would apply and say, hey, we're developing something really cool here in the green space, or maybe something to do with technology that they really want to get out there. And so there's definitely technology grants here in Canada to support that. And actually, that's how I got into grants, because I was working for a company in Asia, and they were in manufacturing.
Ah.
Transition from traditional manufacturing and automotive components to medical. And it was medical for like Japan, medical for Europe. And so the government of Taiwan awarded over $3 million of 0% grants and tax credits and 0% interest loans, things to do with hiring and training. And so that was really interesting that they were able to kind of support that. The other area that I find that a lot of companies want funding in, often there isn't funding in, is in the operational side of things. So where you're hiring a salesperson, or you are upgrading your facilities, or you need to buy a truck, or you need to buy a piece of machinery, or to pay for rent. So those are all things that are really operational, and the government does expect, in Canada anyway, that you're able to afford that to be able to run your business.
Right. That's too bad.
Loan programs are available.
That's right. Yeah. And I suppose that once you start talking to some, every business is different, isn't it? It's all made up of different nuances, different machinery on the floor, different specialties. And so you'll be able to walk people through that. So you mentioned really casually, there's three different types of money: grants, credits, and 0% interest loans. And I guess that's where you guys are the specialists in that. But what are the differences, just for us listening or watching?
Yeah, so grants could also be considered non-repayable, buckets of money where the government would give you funding to do something that is aligned with what program they have, and you don't have to pay the money back. So what I like to call it is free money. The tax credits usually come into play where you are spending money on something and then you can make a claim for part of those expenses. So in Canada, we have something called SHRED. It's actually SRNED, and it's to do with scientific research and experimental development. And so that program is where you spend your money on payroll and scientists who are working with you, or maybe testing, maybe materials to actually run certain experiments. And then what they'll do is they'll kick back a portion of that through a tax credit to you. 0% interest loans are really interesting because some of these loan programs in Canada are 0% interest up to 9 years.
9 years?
Years.
That's
so you don't start repaying until probably the third or fourth year, and then you have up to 9 years to repay. And so the benefit of 0% interest is obviously, if you look at the banks now, going in with business loans, it's probably closer to 6, if not 7% and higher here in Canada.
Right.
And so this will really help to offset that type of cost.
Yeah. I think the benefit to 0% interest loans is the 0% interest part.
Yeah, it's pretty attractive. I mean, if people could buy houses for 0% interest, I mean, they do have to come up with the deposit side of things, but in this case, there's a lot of programs available out here for business owners to leverage for machinery, for leasehold improvements, for properties, for your business, things like that.
So can you share some stories with us? Because the people listening make woodwork or cabinetry or kitchen and baths all the way up to beautiful architectural millwork that you would find in a very high-end hotel or casino or something like that. So we've got a wide range of people, but they might be walking their dog right now listening to this as a podcast thinking, okay, none of this applies to me. We take flat stock wood and we mill it and then we make, boxes that go on the wall. How does that apply to me? Do you have any stories that you can tell us that just fires our mind and goes, I could do that?
Yeah, so I actually come from manufacturing, Dom. I don't know if you
know this. Yeah.
So I used to be in a mill shop, actually, not on wood, but it was more metals. So we did CNC machining. And so I'll tell you a little bit about how, a machine shop, for example, or woodworker could leverage this. So starting off with, what about the talent that you guys are hiring? Are you hiring people who they might be young, recent grads from the university program, and you want to bring them on as full-time staff to work in the shop or maybe in the office side of things? So there are grant programs that you can immediately leverage from there. So let's say you bring on a couple of people, you train them up together, and you realize, wow, you're doing pretty well, but it would be great if they could get some training on this particular type of machinery or this particular type of software. Maybe it's CAD, maybe it's, something to do with 3D.
Hmm.
Maybe it's something to do with the actual machine itself to, enhance the ability for this person to work that machine well. So you might send them off for these training grants. And you might also have someone who's in your sales team. They're not producing. You want to get them sales trained. You want to, send your social media person or your marketing person to social media courses because they've been with your business for 20 years and they don't know how to get that out there. And you want to, make that connection, and you don't want to have to do it. So this is where training up your staff from quality side of things all the way through to the business skills and leadership.
Right.
A lot of manufacturing facilities where they have really good people who are in the trades, but the reality is they haven't gone through business school. They don't really know how to manage a team. So
Mhm.
how would you be able to get that for them? So that type of thing. Then you start looking at, hey, we've kind of tapped out what we want to do here in Canada. I want to start shipping to the US. I want to start shipping to Europe. I want to go to Australia. And so there are programs that will pay for things like trade shows. They'll pay for you to go out there and meet with buyers. They'll
Oh,
pay
wow.
for some of the lawyer fees associated with developing a contract. And so you're now leveraging, a little bit of your money. It's usually a matching type of requirement, but a little bit of your money and the government's money, which you're paying for taxes on anyway.
Right.
Um, Other companies are doing it. And so that's kind of, in terms of story, that's the way that I would recommend any manufacturer kind of go about things.
Wow. I didn't realize there were so many layers to this. I mean, you clearly know your way through it. And is it just one grant program, or is there multiple? Is there just one department of the government you go to and lay your case out in front of, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you wish that they would be that
Oh, I
organized.
did wish. That's why I said it. That's not how it goes?
No, unfortunately not.
Oh, okay.
One of the things that we find is unique about the government is everybody seems to just have their hand on one part of the government funding. And so they may be responsible just for hiring grants. Then you're going to have somebody else just responsible for upskilling and training. And
Oh,
so these guys don't talk to each other either, which is where, when I put together Granted, I'm like, I'm going to make that connection to be able to build out what I just discussed was a grant strategy for a business, because the reality is it's not that simple. It's very easy to get lost in, what now, where do I go? Oh, that program's gone now, and now what is it called? And it was open and now it's closed. So, navigating through that does take a little bit of nimbleness.
so sorry, you said open and closed. What does that mean?
So grant programs often open, meaning that you can start applying for grants when there's federal budget dollars or provincial budget dollars that are announced.
Ah, okay.
That would be the case in the States as well, I would assume. And so, when the federal budget comes out, they say, okay, this is what we're going to put towards this particular industry or this particular type of hiring or training grant or market expansion program.
Mhm.
So once it opens, the people who know about the grants will flood their applications in. And this was the experience with one of the training grants this month. They opened it on April the 9th and it was closed by the 16th. That's 1 week time frame for
To
you to
get all of your paperwork in.
you got to get it in, and it better be correct because they're not going to give you a second chance.
So, wow, I didn't realize. And so these grants are coming and going all the time then.
All the time, yeah. I mean, I would say the more fruitful time to look at, the newer programs or ones that get extended is going to be at the beginning of the government fiscal year,
Right.
because that's when they're going to announce budget numbers and whatnot. But some of these programs don't actually launch until 8 months or 9 months into the fiscal year. So when we talk about year round, that's really what we're looking at. And they change all the time too. So they'll have a program, they'll say yes, this is allowed, and then the following year they'll say this is not allowed anymore.
Well, that makes it easy.
Fun stuff.
Lots of fun. But of course, that's why you exist, to do this kind of thing for businesses. So in your background then in manufacturing, you talked about tech and woodworking. And I've worked with lots of different woodworking companies, and quite often they don't think they're a tech company, yet they're developing ways for their software to talk internally and pull in outside and maybe work with their CRM and nesting with their CNC. And is now not that that's an official grant suggestion for you, but is that the kind of innovation that you're talking about when you talk about tech and woodworking manufacturing?
Yeah, well, here in Canada, the way they define innovation is if it's not being done anywhere else in Canada. Okay, so really, for the government to know that, they have to know of other companies that are doing something similar. So I'll give you an example because food tends to be the easiest way to understand it. Okay, so with food, it's like I'm changing the cupcake flavor. Well, that's not considered innovative.
Right.
But it is something like we're adding in gluten-free stuff, and that's going to change the shelf life, and that's going to adjust the taste of things, and you got to test it, and you've got to send things to SGS for whatnot. Then that type of stuff would. So if we bring it back to woodworking, very similar. Maybe there's a particular way that you're manufacturing something which is very standard, but you find a way that you're like, hey, this is the faster way of doing it, or maybe this particular machine can be used in this way. So we had, 3-axis, 5-axis machines, milling machines that we use for toolings and things like that. And we were able to create really unique golf ball molds for Nike. And
Wow.
so, yeah, so I mean, you would say, okay, well, typically this is just used for tooling. It's, for big chunks of metal. And here you are going in and, carving out little divots that are like every little bit counts. I mean, it could totally throw your golf ball off.
Yeah.
And I know golf, so I know what I know that you know this stuff. So when your swing goes off, you could probably blame that on the golf ball.
I always, yeah, always blame my tools. That's the key to any sport is blame the tools.
Yes, exactly. And so, something like that could also be seen as innovative. So you have situations like that in your mill shop where you're doing something, and it could also be something that you're developing internally. It totally could. But when we use the word technology, it doesn't actually have to do with what we consider high tech or software or anything like that. It really could be a process that you're using. It could be a technique that you're using as well,
Right.
and that it's not being done anywhere else in Canada. So if you've seen it in Italy and you want to bring it back here, they may also see that as innovative.
Oh, well, because there are trade shows in Europe, Austria, Italy is great, very, very good equipment manufacturers out there. So if I saw something that was really neat at an Austrian trade show and I was the first one to come back and implement it here and get that in front of the government, they might have some money to throw towards it.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that you're putting something out there that's got a little bit of risk to it, right? So it's not that, okay, well, the government's going to pay for 100%. It might be more like a matching requirement where, okay, you want to put in the 50% of the cost of materials, maybe you want to put in 50% of the cost of tooling, and then what they'll do is they'll kick off the other 50%. So the government in Canada, anyway, is really out there to help mitigate that risk so that it can heighten your ability to do more innovative stuff.
This is so cool. I bet people are probably scrambling right now taking notes, and the ones that aren't here in BC are wondering how they can find it in their own province or state or country. And as you said, that's all out there. All right, so we talked a little bit about what grants are and when we can use them, the different types of grants available. Have you got a couple stories for us of somebody? Now, you can't use names, I imagine, those are pretty confidential, but give us a story from manufacturing about a company that's made something and was able to access different kinds of grants.
Yeah, so there's a manufacturing company near us, about 20 minutes away from us, and they started off just, hiring people. There was maybe 1 or 2 new hires that they have to hire people for the shop. We were able to get them funding to do that. At that time, there was something in dollar amount wise. Some of these smaller grants are $3,000 to $4,000, but we were able to leverage one that was $15,000 for them.
Oh,
Hired someone in inventory management and logistics. So sometimes these grants are associated with a particular role. Sometimes they're associated with a particular industry. Right? And so in this case, it was a particular role. It was this, anything to do with logistics or supply management. That was the role that you could get, and it paid for half of this person's salary, which was great. And
yeah.
then they went in and they said, you know what, our management team is just dying for some leadership training. And the business owner was like, I got to find a way to kind of get out of my business in this way and let my team do their magic and really lead. And so there was an ability for them to then take the training grant and bring in someone who is a certified trainer to come and do a course with a management team over 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, the cost of that typically would have been 30 grand and we saved them 20.
That's significant. So I can see, all these little changes add up to a much stronger company that's beating the competition, and the government money is helping them do it.
Right. And so, this is where we look at, do you need an investor or do you need the government, right? And so that's what we're looking at is sometimes these things you're going to be doing anyway. You going out to do trade shows, that might be standard for you. If you're exploring into a new market, though, that might be a little bit more unique because there's a lot more risk when you go and look at a new marketplace. Those are the types of things that the government would totally be into funding because they recognize that it's not just a standard operational thing that you're doing.
Mm.
It also adds to the visibility of Canadian businesses being in the international marketplace. And so definitely there are grants, to support that side of things as well. And what we do at Granted is more on the hiring, training, and market expansion side of things. So the technology grants that we spoke of earlier, where you're doing something to, for innovation or for to greenify a particular process, for instance, that's a little bit outside of our wheelhouse. But the key is for us to be strong consultants, we have to know all those programs, and we'll tell you, you should absolutely look at this, or you should wait for this budget to come through before you do this or that. And so that's the idea is really kind of developing. Everybody has a financial strategy for the business, or I should say not everyone, some people do. And most businesses will have a hiring strategy or a marketing strategy, but most businesses don't think about a grant strategy.
Yeah, well, I mean, until I met you, I hadn't thought about a grant strategy at all, and this isn't my first company. And I think I could have used you in two of my past companies for sure, especially on the tech side, because we did have tech involved there. One was lower tech, but still tech. And we didn't go for grants at all. And that's just money we left on the table.
I think you're not alone when it comes to this. Unfortunately, I think the government makes it a little bit more challenging sometimes to find these programs. And I can see the point of view of the government to say, you know what, we're already giving you free money. We're not going to go and market it and stick it in front of your face. So if you really want this, you're going to have to come and get it. And so, when we deal with government grant programs, they have to be wary of how much money they're actually spending on the marketing of it, just because of the optics. And I would imagine that would be the case with most programs across the board in any country.
For government money, yeah. You know what I've been thinking as you've been explaining this industry and the approach and the different buckets the money is available to, is succession planning. And maybe not from the perspective that you think, but a lot of the businesses in this, it's manufacturing, and I know you have a manufacturing background. So manufacturing really is manufacturing no matter where you go. It started by somebody 30 years ago, and now their kids are older, or maybe the management team has aged with them and is ready. The original owner is ready to move on, and you've got the kids moving up, or the management team wanting to take over that ownership position, and they're saying, we're going to do things differently. We've been running the same way for 29 years. Now's the time for change. And I think in listening to some of the options that you laid out, it sounds to me like those are the options for the new kids on the block, if you will, in a lot of cases, to come in and bring innovation in, or find ways to fund that innovation in what might feel like a stagnant business.
It's almost like my story, Dom. That's
Oh,
exactly what happened in Asia. Is we went from this traditional, car parts manufacturing for OEM and aftermarket, and things had to change because it was getting so competitive that if we didn't differentiate ourselves, there's just we're then competing for the penny. It's really what it was. And so moving into a medical manufacturing, it wasn't being done anywhere. Like with the parts and things that we were making, it wasn't being done by any other company in Taiwan. And so that's exactly what we're talking about, is like, maybe it is the existing business owner who sees this opportunity, but how do you transition the business into that and do it in a way that's really sustainable? And so often it's not that trial and error. It really is to do with getting the professionals in there, having them help you out with it, and then getting the funding to support that. So I would say that it probably rings true with a lot of the audience that you're speaking to too.
yeah. Well, I'm sitting here thinking, what kind of medical device is a golf ball? But I don't know what you guys did with the golf ball, nor do we want to talk about it. This is a family show, and we're not going to talk about that. But obviously, there was an entrepreneurial angle to that business where you guys were looking for new opportunities to get away from that commodity mindset. Is that fair?
Absolutely. I mean, it was how do we use this five-axis turning, milling machine for something other than tooling? And so that's where that golf ball thing comes out. So yeah, where you're thinking outside of the box, you're open to different opportunities. You know that the standard ways that the industry is doing things is not going to give you that longevity for the business. That's
Right.
really what we're speaking of. And so a lot of these grant programs available can be leveraged in a way to support those initiatives.
Yeah. I think you have peeled back the eyelashes and eyelids of a lot of people today on this. This is great. Sadly, I would say most people don't know that grant programs exist in any country. And I've business coached all over the world. I've done lots in Australia, New Zealand, a little bit in South Africa, obviously the States and Canada. And grants has never been a front runner topic of discussion when we talk about how to fund innovation. And I'm kicking myself now because it should have been. I should have been finding solutions like you or guiding people to find those things because obviously they exist.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because they teach you everything you need to know in business school about, or not everything, but the key components in business school for marketing, for sales, maybe, for HR and for accounting, strategy, things like that. But they don't teach you anything about grants, which is why, knock on wood, I find that the number of competitors that we have in Canada is limited because no one really gets it. I mean, it's a difficult language to understand, first off, because they speak
Right.
government, which is not a language that most people can speak or read and be okay with reading 40-page documents and be excited about, different programs that are out there. But the other side of things is these programs change all the time.
Right.
And so by the time you figure it out and you get into it and you get your clients or whatnot to, look into it, and they're busy. I mean, they don't have time to be reading these documents and trying to figure out if they're fit or not. And
No.
writing it is another, a challenge as well. So that's what I find is difficult. And so finding the right grant is like finding a needle in a haystack sometimes, but once you get it, it could be over year, like every year after year, you can tap into the same program. It's possible.
Oh, oh, it's not a one-time thing.
No, no, you could absolutely, they may modify the program a little bit from year to year, but you could absolutely be leveraging, a hiring grant and then going back to a training program, then going back to another hiring program or the same one from 2 years ago, and then you can do a market expansion program. So there's a lot of different ways that you can leverage out there.
That is crazy. I'm learning more and more the longer we go, but we can only go so long. So let's wind it down now. There's a ton of takeaways. I've already filled my book with notes, and this is my second interview with you. We
Yeah.
did the pre-interview. Now I took more notes on this one. So thank you. Anything we can do to add value to the manufacturing community that provides jobs, that there's so much that happens out of the manufacturing sector that gets overlooked. Let me change that. That I kept thinking gets overlooked, but clearly there's government input here that we just haven't tapped into yet. So that's great.
Mhm.
Um, if somebody does want to find out more about this, especially here in British Columbia, uh, how do they contact you if they want to do that?
Yeah, so I chose my name of Granted, actually from Oprah, where it's a lot of this power of intention thing where I'm like, you've been granted and you've been granted. So everybody gets a piece of the pie. So our website is granted.ca. If you click into the contact us page, you can fill in, some information about your organization, and that will get you likely a phone call with me. And that's where I could tap a little bit deeper into, is this a good fit for you at this point in time? And that's the other thing, Dom, is, companies in growth stage, they're going to be at different stages when they talk to me. And so by knowing who they are, we're able to then bring the right opportunity to them based on the stage of business that they are. And maybe a year later, they're at a different point. And so, we can look at different programs at that point as well.
Wow.
Granted.ca/contact us is the page. And we work with companies, all across Western Canada. So if there's anyone from BC all the way into Manitoba, we're happy to work with them on different projects.
It's absolutely stunning me now that all of this information exists. And even myself as a professional business coach, I've been doing this for 18 years. And I'll have to admit, I still don't know enough about this, but I do know who to call if I need to. And in any different market, I think there's probably people like you. Uh, it's funny, tax season's just here. And I know what it's like to do my own taxes, which I don't do, by the way. Why would you? But then you chose to do that. you chose to live inside those forms and subsection B, Form 9F, and that itself just blows me away. So congratulations to you on that. And for anybody listening that doesn't want to do that, call Stephanie or somebody like her and get it done. All right.
Yeah, I will say that, I still love doing my own taxes. So my husband will laugh at me every year and be like, you can get your accountant to do this. You know that. And I'm like, I know, but I just want to see all the money that comes through, all the savings that I get as a result of it and maximize my tax credits. And so, that's what I do. That's what I live at.
You're doing what you love doing, and that's the best any of us can hope for in life. That's fantastic. Well, thank you, Stephanie, for taking some time to join us. For those of you listening or for those of you watching here, because this will be on YouTube as well, you can come back to the website, cabinetmakerprofitsystem.com, and download either the audio or the video, but we'll also have it as a transcript if you want to take your notes on it yourself. And Stephanie, I think you have a document you're going to send me. And if you do, I'll put that on the website too so people can download that and scribble notes. And if you're out of market, if you're listening to this thinking, well, I'm not in British Columbia, I'm not in Vancouver, I can't use this, download the form anyway, and then take that to your local person or talk to your business partner about how can we do this in our market, because there's always a way. You just have to find that way. All right. Well, thanks, Stephanie. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us here.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. And that's one of the things that I am really, really empowered by is being able to share what I know about grants so that everyone has the ability to access them.
Love it. Love it. All right. Thank you. And thanks to everybody for listening here. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.